Hello everyone and welcome back to another Wizard101 video. Now you may immediately be asking like, Noah, what the heck? This is not Wizard101, and you're right. This is a map of the world, bucko, and it's a little bit different than Wizard101. Today, I want to recreate one of my favorite videos I have literally ever made on my channel, and that is mapping out the spiral of Wizard101 on a real world map. Because each world, if you didn't know, or at least the vast majority of them, are based on real world places. And I think it's very interesting to look at the map and look at, the globe and see where all of these worlds actually took place from. So clicking on the video, you might actually learn something about one of teenage me's passions, which was history, but also potentially, a little bit something about cultures and different places on the world. Now, I will say I'm no master historian. I've studied a lot of history, but I'm not like a genius. So there's a possibility that something in this video may be wrong. I think the vast majority of it will be right, but if I do map anything wrong and you have a problem with it, let me know in the comments. I'll make sure to pin your comment or whatever if it's something that I think warrants actual correction. Now, how this is going to work is basically I'm going to go in order of the Wizard101 worlds. I'm going to go Arc 1, and then I'm going to go to some of the side worlds, Arc 2, Arc 3, Arc 4. You get the point. There are some worlds, and actually starting off with Wizard City, there are some worlds that technically don't really have a real life location, and for those, I'll just give a close approximate. But without further ado, enough rambling, let's get into the video. Now, as I just mentioned, Wizard City is a little bit harder than most other places in Wizard101 because Wizard City doesn't really have a specific place it's based on. It's supposed to be a school where all different professors and people from the spiral come together to actually, go to this school and learn about magic. And the thing is, that kind of means that it doesn't have a specific place that it actually is. Basically, the point is Wizard City is impossible to map, and for the first one, it's a little bit disappointing, but I kind of have to throw it in Antarctica because I don't know what else to do. Next up, we have Krakatopia, and all of you should know that this is based on ancient Egypt. Now, obviously, you can see this from the pyramids, you can see this from the Manders who were enslaved by the Crocs, who, that is a similar thing to what happened in ancient Egypt. Obviously, we have the Crocosphinx, which is based off the real life Sphinx. You get my point. Krakatopia is very much based on ancient Egypt, and yeah, cool place to go for a second world for sure. We love desert worlds here. Next up, we have Marleybone, and we all know that Marleybone right there, based on the British Isles, and specifically based on the British Empire, the Royal Museum, where they're collecting all the artifacts. That's based on the fact that real life Britain went around and collected a bunch of artifacts. And the Marleybonian Empire also, you can see them throughout different places in the spiral, similarly to Britain. Like we can see them in Krakatopia, and Britain did take over Egypt for about 50 plus years. Next up, we have Mushu, and Mushu's always been an interesting one for me. I would say largely Mushu is based on Japan over here, which I just realized you guys can't see because of how my face cam is. I would say that largely Mushu is based on Japan. Obviously, you have stuff like samurai, you have a bunch of yokai spirits and oni spirits. Those are all largely Japanese things and based on Japanese lore, which I think is very, very interesting. Now, I will say as a kid, I was kind of confused about this because one thing that is a bit weird is that Mushu has the Jade Emperor and kind of the Jade Champion and that whole thing, which is largely a Chinese thing. But I think that that was just kind of like supposed to be I don't know if it's supposed to be a nod to Chinese history or if it's just supposed to be like something like, haha, this is a thing, we're mixing lore. I don't know, but Mushu is obviously largely based on Japan, and you could just kind of get that from the whole ninjas and samurai thing. Next up, we have Dragonspire, and Dragonspire is interesting because similar to a lot of final worlds, you guys will see this later on with most final worlds in an arc, is they don't really have a place that they're specifically based on. If I had to kind of compare it to the closest thing, I would say that Dragonspire would be based on Imperial Russia. Now, obviously, you could just kind of gather this from the fact that all the people in Dragonspire have these slight Russian accent the whole time, right? Like that thing. It is kind of based on a militaristic society, which could realistically be any imperialistic European country in the 18 to 1900s. I would say, personally, I would attribute it mostly to Russia, but I feel like you could kind of skew it and say it's based on other things. The lore of Dragonspire doesn't really akin itself to Imperial Russia that much. I guess you could kind of compare like the fall of Dragonspire to the whole Russian Civil War thing. I don't think it's really that good of a comparison, but that's fine. We'll leave it there. And that is Arc 1 done with. Now, next up, we're getting into some side worlds and also some Pirate 101 worlds because I feel like they will help map out some of the rest of these worlds. All right, next up, we have Grizzleheim, and Grizzleheim is very obviously based on Scandinavian lore and Scandinavian countries. It's based off the Norse and Nordic myths. Obviously, you guys should know that. Based on the Vikings of the 7th to 8th century, kind of generally Grizzleheim is just simply Scandinavia as a whole. Now, Aquila is very obviously based on ancient Greece and Greek legends. Like, obviously, there's the gods themselves. There's Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, Apollo, which for the people that corrected me in my Mount Olympus video and said that it's Apollo, not Apoyo, I know he's a chicken. That made me so angry. You don't know how much I hated the fact I had to correct 4 separate people in my comments about that. He's a chicken. He says his name's Apoyo. I know it's pronounced Apollo. Anyway, sorry. I feel like that was a legitimate crash out. You can tell me if it was legitimate in the comments below if you want. But Aquila is based on ancient Greece. I digress. I won't talk about it and rant about it anymore. All right, next up we have some Pirate 101 worlds. Now, first off, I'm going to just generally say that Skull Island is part of the Caribbean. Now, the main reason for that, if you don't know, in real life, pirates and a lot of piracy happened specifically in the Caribbean islands down here. Like, if you've ever even just played like Assassin's Creed Black Flag, obviously that mostly takes place in the Caribbean. Mostly, it was just kind of an area that a bunch of empires took over and then kind of just neglected for a while, and piracy ran rampant in that area. Which means that Skull Island and Pirate 101, largely in the beginning, takes place down here in the Caribbean. Now, you may be asking why I'm ranking Skull Island if this is kind of mostly a Wizard 101 video. Well, Skull Island will help us find the location of another world later on that you otherwise wouldn't really be able to tell where it is. Next up, we can include Monquista. Now, Monquista is interesting because it is based off of the real-life Spanish Empire. This is based on the Empire of Spain, specifically in like the 15th century kind of area, 15th to 16th century. And this is made obvious by quite a few things. Like, I mean, beyond the fact that, you know, their king and queen are based on Isabel and Ferdinand. Later, they actually land in Azteca, and that mimics real life, where the Spanish Empire landed in the Aztec Empire back in the day. And then obviously the Monquistans, if you've played Pirate 101, you know they have a lot of problems with replacing governors constantly and whatnot. That is also a common Spanish issue that they had during the Empire, and specifically with their empire in the New World. All right, next for the Pirate 101 worlds, I'll include Cool Ranch real fast, which is obviously a very cool and very interesting world if you've never played it, based on the Wild West of kind of America. It's based on, you know, if you've ever played like Red Dead, it's based on that kind of area, like based on Western America and kind of the time of migration where it went west to explore better opportunities. It's kind of over there in that range, and Cool Ranch, quite the cool world, if I do say so myself, pun not intended. All right, next Pirate 101 world I want to talk about is Valencia. Now, obviously, this is also included in Wizard 101. In Novus, the Valencian Empire shows up with Mario de Mario, and if you didn't kind of get it, it's based on Italy. It's based on, you know, the Italians and the Italian Empire as well. While they appear in Wizard 101, the Pirate 101 versions of them are kind of based on, like, you could even say ancient Rome a little bit, with the Valencian kind of clockwork people. Those kind of give ancient Roman vibes more than Italy, but I would say that kind of the rest of Valencia is based on Italy and probably post-Renaissance Italy. All right, next up we get into Arc 2. Now, this right here is the main reason why I wanted to map out Skull Island to begin with, and that is the fact that Celestia I would put right around here. Now, you may be asking, Noah, how do you even know where Celestia is? It's entirely underwater. It could be literally anywhere on the globe, and you were absolutely correct. However, there's one thing that kind of lends credence to the fact that Celestia is somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean, and that is the fact that in Celestia, there is the floating land. The floating land has the moles, and specifically the mole village. Now, what does Skull Island have? A lot of moles. So my theory and kind of what I would say is that Celestia is somewhere near Skull Island in terms of the worlds. I don't know whether, you know, it's like a one-to-one like kind of thing. I think it's just interesting that moles are found in Skull Island pretty frequently, and they're also found in the floating land in Celestia. You don't really find natural occurring kind of a species like that in Wizard 101 in multiple different worlds. You don't tend to find that. So that gives me the idea that Celestia and Skull Island are probably close together somehow. I don't know how, but That's where I'd put them on the map. Next up, we have Zafaria, and Zafaria is obviously just based on Africa. It's based on the wilds of Africa. If I had to put it somewhere, I'd put it just in the slap dab in the middle here. You can maybe say it's a little bit more towards the south because like there is like Shaka Zebu, I believe, who's based off of Shaka Zulu, based on the Zulu Empire in the early 19th century, I believe, which is in southern Africa. But otherwise, I don't think it's generally based on one place. Obviously, it's supposed to be a Safaria. All right, next up is Avalon, and Avalon is very obviously based on King Arthur and Arthurian legend from like 5th to 8th century England. If you don't know anything about it, basically it's talking about knights. There's the Knights of the Round Table, which is literally a thing in Wizard 101. There's King Arthur and his wife, Guinevere, who is, you know, obviously represented in game with King Artorias and Gwendolyn. Basically, all the Arthurian legends have been taken and placed in Wizard 101, and Avalon is probably, I would say, one of the worlds people know the most about where it's based off of. It's just based off of early Dark Ages England. Next up, we have Azteca, and Azteca is very interesting because it is basically a one-for-one based on the Aztec Empire in modern-day Mexico. Now, the Aztecs were a huge empire spanning all this kind of Central America section right here, obviously, before the Europeans came and killed all of them, whether that be from disease or from, you know, the Spanish just conquering them. That's where Azteca is based on, and kind of interesting, you know, there's Xibalba the Comet, who kind of ends the world, or supposedly ends the world, and, you know, that's kind of based on the fact that the Aztecs had predictions for the end of the world. You know, there was that whole thing back in 2012. I don't know if any of you remember that, but I remember like sitting in a classroom in like, I don't even know. I mean, I was 10. I don't remember what school year it was, but I remember we were all sitting there and being like, the world's gonna end any time, guys. Look at the clock. We'll get out of school early if the world ends. And that was really funny. But obviously, Azteca, Aztec Empire, that one you could have figured out yourself. Now, next up we have Chrysalis, and Chrysalis is kind of funny because I don't think it's really based on a specific place. It's kind of just generally bugs. It's bug world. Obviously, there's the ruined Alcazar, which like you could say is based on Alcatraz, but I really don't think that that's a connection. I think it's supposed to just be like a nod to it. I don't think it's supposed to be like a, yes, this is where it takes place. If I had to say, I would say Chrysalis kind of gives like Australia type vibes, like the kind of, I don't know, desert area with a bunch of horrific monsters. Also, all of the people in Chrysalis have like either British or Australian accents. You could take that as you will. Obviously, Wallaroo later on is going to be based on Australia as well, but I do think Chrysalis, if I had to put it anywhere, I'd put it in Australia. I don't know. That's where I'd put it anyway. Next up, we have Polaris, and Polaris is very, very interesting because Polaris, very obviously for most people, it takes place in France. It's based on the French Revolution with the whole storming of the Bastille and everything. However, I do think it's very, very interesting because it's not just based on France. Obviously, I'm going to put it into France and I'll map it there, but there is also some inclusions from the Russian Revolution as well. The walruses all kind of have Russian accents and the polar bears do as well. It's a weird amalgamation of the two. Like there is the Winter Palace, which is literally a thing in real life in Russia. I'm going to put it into France because I think it's supposed to be in France, but I do think it's interesting because it is kind of like a weird amalgamation of the two. And I don't know if that's just like kind of KingsIsle taking from different places, but Polaris, largely on France, does have some Russian included in it as well. Next up, we have Mirage, which is based on obviously modern day Iran and kind of the Persian Empire of the past. I'm not going to go too in depth with it because honestly my knowledge of history in Persia is a little bit less than most other places, but I do obviously know that it is supposed to be in Persia and modern day Iran. Next up we have Imperia, and Imperia is interesting because similarly to Chrysalis, I don't think it's really supposed to be a specific place. If I had to put it anywhere on the map, I would guess I would put it in South America somewhere because it is kind of giving like the aerial jungle does kind of give like a Peru Amazon jungle kind of vibe. So maybe I would put it in South America, but I don't think it's really supposed to be dedicatedly based on South America. It's supposed to, you know, it has a lot of Star Trek references. Obviously, I can't map it out in space, so I'm putting it in South America instead. Might as well be space, I guess. All right, next up we have Caramel, and Caramel is definitely based on Switzerland. There's just a bunch of Swiss references that I can go over. There's, you know, all the names are Swiss names. There's the fact that there's the whole chocolate thing and the candy thing and the over-the-top kind of production of that. There's obviously the fact that, you know, they're speaking in German accents, and there's the German architecture, which Switzerland tends to have a lot of as well. So I would put Caramel firmly in the Switzerland territory, which is in kind of Central Europe. Next up, we have Lemuria, and where am I supposed to put Lemuria? You guys, if you played the world, know The Lemuria is literally supposed to be an amalgamation of all the worlds that we've gone to in the past put together. So how am I supposed to map that? I'll put it in Antarctica, just like Wizard City. It's kind of an unmappable place. Like there's the Night Forest, which is based on Avalon. There's the Badlands, which is based on, you know, like Mirage and kind of Krokotopia. It's really hard to map. All right, following Lemuria, we have Novus. And once again, how am I supposed to map this? Obviously, Novus is like literally a non-real life based world, but the different empires are there. Like we've talked about all of the empires already. We've talked about the Polaris, there's the Monquistans, there's the Valencians right here, there's the Marleybonians. You get my point. There's basically all of the worlds. You know, there's new land. What can I say other than, you know, haha, imperialism? We'll put that in Antarctica with the other two that I have no idea how to map. Now, next up, we have Wallaroo, which is very, very obviously supposed to be based on Australia. I don't think King's Isle could have made it much more obvious than that. Wallaroo is based on Australia. Now, finally, let's talk about Darkmoor. Darkmoor, I obviously haven't played yet, but I have played the dungeon in the past. I will say, generally, I don't think it's supposed to be based on a specific place, but if I had to put it somewhere, I would just put it in like generally Eastern European area. You could say it's based on like, you know, vampires in Transylvania, but I think it's just generally Eastern Europe, and I think that's a pretty safe place to put it. So if we zoom out right here so that you can see the entire map, you can see that most of the map is based on European countries. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 worlds, all kind of right here in Europe. Dragonspire is 8, and then kind of the rest are scattered throughout the world. And you know, there's a few places that I would say definitely need new worlds that would be really, really cool to go to. Like, you know, potentially some Eastern United States would be cool. We have like China and like India and Southern Asia over here. Kind of the oceanic countries down here could be really cool. Very South America, such as Argentina, Chile, that kind of area, I think would be really cool to get a world in. Or maybe even like Northern Africa, like Morocco up here in kind of the Sahara Desert area. But otherwise, that is pretty much it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it just as fun as I did. I imagine that this is going to get less views than my other videos, but that's okay. I genuinely enjoyed this video, and I think it's very, very fun to map out the spiral as a whole. And I hope that you learned something in this video, or I hope that you found this at least to be quite interesting as I did. But otherwise, that's it for today. Thank you all for watching. I will see you in the next video. Have a fantastic day. Thank you all for watching.